Hey, my name is David Glenn of davidglennrecording.com and theproaudiofiles.com. And today I have a special video for you. I've got a custom mix critique that I'm doing for my friend Matt McQueen, member of the mixacademy.com. And this service is also something I do with the upper tiers of all of my courses. You can check out more of those in the links below. But Matt's got a song that he sent my way. I'm going to take a listen. I've got this pulled open in Pro Tools. And typically what I do is I give it a listen. I take a bunch of notes in my task app here called Wunderlist. A lot of you guys have heard of it. It's completely free. It's got a nice list management system. But anyways, you can go check that out as well. And just go through and I give a bunch of notes. I give some thoughts. I'm going to pull open and show some techniques, some concepts, some things to check for your own mixes. I thought that it could relate. Matt was super kind enough to allow me to share this with you. So lots of concepts that go, lots of things that are going to apply to his mix here, but things that will definitely help you in your mixing as well, and things that you can keep an ear out for. So I'm blabbing. Let's jump right in. We're going to take a look at his song and give a little mix critique. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a look. For those of you watching, man, sit back, enjoy the ride. I hope you learn a ton. I'm going to be speaking specifically to Matt about his mix, so I hope you enjoy it. So Matt, I've got your track open. I'm going to take a listen to the first little bit so those watching back can kind of get a vibe of what we're dealing with, and then we're going to click over and reference. I'm going to put you on the spot, man, and I've got one of my favorite tracks open by Chris Tomlin called Awake My Soul. And I think that this would be a great reference for your mix with the changes that I talked to you about here. So let's give a listen to yours. Okay, let's come out here with some vocals.
Tells lies, all he tells lies. I'm angry and I am so lonely, living in this darkness, my heart one man.
Okay, cool. Had another note there. All right, man. So there's that, and then here's Chris Tomlin's mix.
I come alive, I'm alive when you breathe on me.
And there's a big part.
And then he said to me, prophesy to these bones and say to them, drop on.
Got Lecrae coming in with some good stuff, man. Okay, so you hear the difference. It's pretty dramatic, but at the same time, I think we can do some stuff to tighten your overall frequency range, the stuff going on. I'm going to give you some tips for, I hear some pumping in the limiter, so I want to talk to you a little bit about that as well. But I think that you can, you got good balances. You have some great stuff going on. Let's get in and try to take this a little bit closer. The first thing I want to look at is, I'm not sure if you're doing much referencing when you're mixing, but I highly, highly recommend it. I'm going to do an EQ match, but before I do that, I've shown this a couple times in some of my other videos, and you being a member over at the Mix Academy, I know you've seen me do this, but I can't stress it enough, man. This could really, really help you out. I'm going to throw this, actually, let's put that right there. I'm going to throw this down to like 30 hertz, and I'm only going to listen to your track at 30 hertz, and then we're going to check out Tomlin. So those of you listening back, and then Matt, if you're listening to this, some good headphones, a system with a sub, or if you're listening on monitors in a good treated room, you'll hear this sub stuff going on. But if you're on like a laptop or a phone, you probably won't hear this stuff. So here's the sub region on Matt's track. Okay, kind of cool. And then on Tomlin, you can hear it's a little more leveled out. It's a little more compressed. Things are pretty, I don't want to say flat, but they're nice and smooth, nice and tight. All right, Matt, so you've seen me do the EQ trick on my stereo bus, actually the master fader. But for those of you guys watching back that haven't seen it, what I have is in my mix session, I'll have everything going to a set of buses I got from kind of adopted from the Dave Pensato, all drums, all vocals, all music, low end, high end, all effects, different groups, sometimes all guitars, just depends. But those stereo buses, pre-stereo buses, go to my stereo aux track called the Submaster, which is my stereo bus. And the stereo bus then goes to the main outs, the master fader. And the reason why I do the stereo aux is because then I can have my reference track solo saved going out to my main outs. And then say this was my stereo bus right here. That then meets it at the master fader, but all of the processing goes to the stereo bus and not the main outs. I hope that makes sense. If not, I have a whole course on that called the Mix Series. It talks about session workflow and all that good stuff. You can check that out. We'll have the link in the description below. But just to kind of help you, catch you up, this is how I'm able to reference and this EQ here control both of those. So once again, let's take a look at this because Matt's seen this. But for those of you guys who haven't, I'll take an EQ. It's typically the Pro Q2, and I'll just go up the frequency range here. So here's 35 and below. And then now I'm going to click over to the reference track and check out 35 hertz and below. More power, right? So there's a lot more going on. And I checked Matt's track, and he was at about a -8 LUFS or RMS level. So it's mastered. This is a mastered track. So anyways, moving on, we can then pull this up and hear Tomlin. And hear Matt and pull it up a little more. Nice. And we can make our way up. For me personally, once I get to about 150, what I'll do is I'll add a low cut filter, high pass filter, and I'll do the same thing, but now I'll take these two bands and link them so I can hear everything except for the subs and really just focus in on 1 to 200, 1 to 150, whatever you want to do to taste. You can sit here and have a blast with it, but okay, and we can just keep sliding up. So we got some good stuff going on. I feel like when we get to the top end, that's when we start to have some issues. A little more energy in Matt's mix there. And then here, still a little bit more tame on the Chris Tomlin mix. And then as we get to 3 to 5K, it gets a little bit out of control on Matt's mix. It's a little bit harsh right there. It starts at about 3 to 5K. Let's pinpoint that region there. Okay, so anyways, it was meant to be more of a quick overview, but I'll go through and I'll just kind of compare and I'll listen. You got to be careful what reference tracks you pick and different styles of music. Sometimes I take a rock song when I'm working on a hip-hop song. It just depends. With things like Spotify and internet radio, we're competing across genres of music. But anyways, hopefully you get something from that. If you guys haven't done that, I highly recommend checking that out. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to do an EQ match, and I'm going to use the Isotope Ozone Equalizer. And I think this is going to be a big difference. And then we're going to get into talking about the low end triggering the bus compression. So here we've got EQ matching. I'm going to go ahead and come over here to Matt's. I got a marker for your track, and I'm going to capture your reference. Let's see here. I do this all the time and I'm drawing a blank. Let's capture the reference first. Word of God, speak to me. I come alive, I'm alive when you speak to me. Okay, you could let that play as long as you want. For those of you guys watching it back, I tend to let it go for 30, 45 seconds sometimes just to capture enough of what's going on. But then I'm going to come over here to Matt, your track. All details lie. I'm angry and I am so lonely, living
this darkness, my heart one man. I fall and the roof begins to shatter.
Okay, and so now it's captured an image of both of those tracks, and then whenever I engage EQ matching, it's going to give me the matched curve. And so I can take that, and you can see how much brighter, and I put in my notes it was like 5 to 7K, and you can see that giant dip right there. Hook up, what am I talking about? Give a shout out to Quiz Tones, because I've been playing with that lately, and I'm going to credit me being able to pick out 5 to 7K to me messing around with my buddy Dan Comachero's app, Quiz Tones. So go check that out. But let's take a listen now at what we've got here. But instead of having this EQ here, I want it to only be applied to match tracks. So I'm going to pull that there.
All details lie. I'm angry.
If I bypass
I am
it,
so lonely, living in this darkness, my heart one man. I fall in.
Now when I come over and compare it to Chris Tomlin,
I come alive, I'm alive when you breathe. Tales lie, all details lie. I'm angry and I am so lonely, living in.
okay, so I have a feeling that this EQ, the EQ decisions you're making, Matt, are coming from your listening environment. I may be wrong, but a lot of times your room is going to contribute to stuff like this. You're not maybe going to hear things as bright, and so you're going to go boosting. I don't know how long you've been mixing, but for me, man, all my early mixes were like crazy bright. It was really, really annoying when I go back and listen to them. But there you can already hear we've got a little bit warmer track. Things are much, much more easy to listen to, and we've made a lot of progress from just this one technique. And so that was my first thing, which is overall EQ. EQ matching would be a huge time saver for you. But then it also, let me talk about this, instead of just EQ matching and then calling it a day, bouncing your mix again, what you may do is study what the EQ match is doing. So you can hear we've got the 5 to 7K. So you may want to go back and listen to what's happening in that frequency range. What energy is causing the harshness? And it could be your overheads, it could be your cymbals, it could be the S's in your vocal, it could be the vocal itself. You may have boosted some of that. Try to reverse engineer what the EQ match is doing for you. Your low end was pretty close. I think that some compression would be, some multiband compression on the low end would benefit. It would benefit from that, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But mostly just that upper top end energy is off a little bit from your mix to the reference that I pulled in here. So a couple of rabbit trails in there, but I think that that's going to really be huge, is reverse engineering it, learning from it, and applying that to your future mixes so that you don't become so dependent upon EQ matches as a technique to save your butt. It definitely can, and I do it. If you see me in the mixacademy.com, my members over there, I do it all the time. So sometimes I leave it, sometimes I take it off, and I use it to reverse engineer, go find the problem areas and correct them. But I think I've said enough about that. We're going to move on. All right, Matt. So the next thing I want to talk about is your limiter. I hear it pumping, and I think I have a good idea of what is causing the pumping. I think it's your low-end energy triggering the bus compression. Now, I don't have your two bus in front of me, so it's hard for me to say, but maybe we can get you contributing in the comments below as well. And then, of course, you and I are going to talk through email. But some compressors, a lot of compressors, will have a high-pass filter. We can come in here and take a look at one. What's a good one to use as an example? We'll use Slate. We'll pull open the VBC rack, and let's come down here. I use this on my two bus quite a bit. And if you look down here, we've got the high-pass filter, low-cut filter. What this is if I boost that anywhere from 50, 70, 100 hertz, it's going to prevent those frequencies from triggering the compression. The compressor will not react to those frequencies. So this is a huge benefit to us because low-end energy, I don't know if you've looked at an EQ curve of a finished master. Actually, let's take a look at that for example's sake. If we come back over here to our this right here. So you take a look at the frequency ranges. We analyzed the reference track and we analyzed yours. Your top end was a lot brighter, right? but your curve is still low end is apparently louder, and then the curve slides down, right? It's because we hear higher frequencies louder. We perceive them to be louder. So taking a look at that slant from top left to bottom right, kind of that movement, why is that important? Well, the compressor is going to hear and feel the low end unless we use this high-pass filter. Then what we're essentially doing is helping it to focus on, if you stop at 70, 85, 100 hertz, it's going to focus on everything above that. And so you're going to get a much more balanced compression to your overall mix. And I think this could really benefit you. If you're using a compressor that doesn't have that, what I would definitely encourage you to do then is to grab you, I don't know if you have the Pro Q2, but if you have your stock compressor, your stock EQ, it'll work great as well. You could come in here, grab you a 48 dB or so per octave and go to mid-side mode. If you go to mid-side mode, you can have this guy right here be for the middle, and you can have that set to say 20, 25 hertz, something like that. And then we can come in here with another one. We'll set that one at 48 as well. And for the middle, you may have it at for the sides, let's put that on the sides. You may want that up as high as 50 or 60, maybe even 70 or 80. Just depends on the song, what you got going on the sides, how much low-end energy you want out there. So now effectively, what you've done by using this mid-side EQ, high-pass filter, low-cut EQ setup is you're preventing all of this extra energy down here from the middle and from the sides from triggering your compressor. So this may be a big deal. It may not. Just depends on what you have going on below 20, 25 hertz, and then what you have going on the sides below 70, 80, 85 hertz. I think I have my high-pass filter set to like 85 hertz on my two bus. Somewhere in there is a good start. But take a listen to what it's doing, and then ultimately watch how the compressor's reacting. Let's take a look at that right now. Let's see. I don't know which of these guys are on. Let's turn this one off. We'll leave this one on, but let's turn the ratio to, we'll leave it at 1 so it's not triggering any compression. And then this guy, we're going to back off the attack a little bit, speed up the release just a little bit for now, and we're going to play with this. So let's watch when we trigger this compression.
Tell slide, all he tells lies. I'm angry and I am so lonely, living in this darkness, my heart one man.
Okay, so you can see the needle jumping when the kick hits. Take a look again. I'll exaggerate this.
Tell slide, all he tells lies.
Okay, it's jumping quite a bit. So now watch what happens when I raise up the high-pass filter.
Tell slide, all he tells lies. I'm angry and I am so lonely, living in this darkness, my heart one man. I fall and the roof begins to shatter. The world
becomes much more mid-range and top focused, the compression does, as opposed to being triggered by all that extra low end. I probably could have said that a lot better, but hopefully you guys are digging that. Using the high-pass filter could be a huge benefit to your sound. That little bit of pumping, you may like it, you may not, but that could be a great way for you to change it. And then also the Pro Q, the mid-side EQ, making sure that you have that stuff cleaned up before it hits your bus compression or any of your character plugins if you're using a setup similar to me. Next up on the list was, let's take a look here, cutting before the stereo bus, overheads. I don't know, there's something weird going on with the overheads for me. Let's take a listen again.
tell slide, all he tells lies.
Okay, so I hear the cymbals mono right there, and I can't tell if you've got like a hat mic that you're panning just a little bit left and then a ride mic, or if you've got mono overheads. But I feel like there's even some left to right movement kind of going on. I don't know if it's phase issues or what, but a couple things you could do. I would recommend pulling your overhead mics down in the mix, possibly even turning them off. Just experiment. But what you may want to do is blend in some cymbal samples. I've got a tutorial that I've shown where I do that. Just kind of drop in some cymbal samples, go pull your favorite bundle. I love the stuff from That Sound. You can go to I Want That Sound. I'm sure you have checked those out. And I would just get a good stereo spread for your left and a right crash. I don't think you need to do it with the hi-hat or the ride, but just a couple of left and right cymbals to kind of help pull the drums out of that middle section there. Once again, listen to that.
All details lie. I'm angry and
Yeah, so the overhead sounding like they're just right there in the middle. You may like that, you may dig it, totally a taste thing, but I think you could also take the quality of the drums up a notch by using some cymbal samples there. So let's see, we talked about that. Next up, I have here, the snare's not bothering me as much now that we've done the EQ match. It was a little bit bright. It was smacking pretty good in the 3 to 7K region, but I think we've kind of worked with that. So your vocal, the cymbals, and that snare, you may want to go check that 3 to 7K region. And then also your vocal, de-essing your vocal manually by going in and dropping down all of the S's. I think you've seen me do that. But a lot of this stuff, man, sometimes we get going with mixing and we get, creative and we start pushing faders and we kind of forget some of the foundational things that help us to stay in check with our mixing. And so what I would recommend is watching this back, man, take some notes, get a pad and paper out and write down some of these techniques. And then before you print a mix for a client, pull this out, take a look. Hey, check my S's. Have I checked my limiter? Is it pumping? Do I hear too much low end on it? Have I referenced? Maybe try EQ Match if you've got the Ozone or any of the other bundles that do that. Actually, the FabFilter Pro Q2 does EQ matching as well. So all that kind of stuff, just jot you down some, sticky notes or whatever. I've got my app and I pull it open and just kind of go through, checking in the car, checking my mixes on smaller speakers, my iPod buds, that kind of stuff. I think that that will really help you is to kind of put it in a list. So as you learn this stuff, add to your list, and it'll just have a better and better list as time goes on of stuff to check before you bounce a mix and send it off to a client. But anyways, snare, we'll move on from that. Manually de-essing, maybe hitting a little bit more of a de-esser, focusing in on that region there to see what's happening. But then getting into some fun stuff, some creative things. The song that you've got here lends itself to the hook, the chorus, getting bigger, wider, fuller, all that good stuff. And what I want to do is show you how. Let's come out here.
broken inside.
Oh, let's turn that compression off. That wasn't meant to be. That was for example's sake.
Broken inside. So broken inside. Don't leave me here tonight.
Okay, so
broken inside. So broken inside.
Okay, so let's pretend this is my stereo bus. I would drop your overall level on your stereo bus down -1 dB, and then come in here to your chorus and lift it back up.
Broken inside, so broken inside.
Let's find that.
Inside, inside.
I think it's right there. Anyways, you'll get the point. I'm not in tempo with your song. But then what I would do is I would highlight the hook and pull it back up 1 dB. It's going to sound a little weird not being right at the chorus, but
So broken inside.
you could even make it a little build there so that this automation takes you from one level to the next, kind of helps you explode a little
So
bit.
broken inside. Don't leave me here tonight. I'm not worthy of your love.
Okay, so now that's at 0, but let's watch what happens whenever I go back to the verse.
I'm not worthy of your love. Oh, I am so broken here tonight.
It gets louder, right? Okay, so that's one way. The other way, I would do this. I actually add this to my little checklist because I love what it does. And come in here to Waves S1. You may use the Ozone, whatever you dig. Let's take a listen to what this will do.
Here tonight. I'm not worthy of your love, but you were.
Okay, so that's going to be maybe exaggerated a little bit. I'm going to arm that for automation. I'm going to bypass it. But then at that same section actually here, where I have this getting louder, Command Control click and pull open that automation lane. I'm going to activate it so that we get 20% wider only at the chorus.
So broken. inside. Don't leave me here tonight.
You see it kicked in a little bit late there. Let's try and get that dead on there.
So broken inside. Don't leave me here tonight. I'm not worthy of your love.
Okay, so you get the point. For it to hit the chorus and get a little bit wider, and then turn it back off when you go back to the verse. Let things kind of open up whenever you get to that chorus. Let it explode a little bit. I thought that would be a good fit for this song. If 1 dB on the volume is too much, you may just try 0.5. If 20% is a bit crazy, maybe just do 10%. It could be just 5%, helping to just create a little bit of separation between the sections. Moving into some of the instruments happening. As a mixer, sometimes we're presented with arrangements where things just aren't working. Things are clashing, or the rhythms are pushing up against each other, and just kind of creates a mess. I don't know what your involvement was in the recording of this track. I think it's recorded fairly well, but what I'm hearing to my ear, to my taste, that I want to present to you is the piano and the guitar. The piano, I think, fits really well in the verses where the guitars are chill and it's really tame. But then I think at the chorus, the piano is doing its thing and it's getting a little bit bouncy on me, and I'm losing some of the power of the guitars. So let's find actually that section. Hear what I'm talking about right here.
I'm so broken inside. Don't leave me here tonight. I'm not worthy of your love, but you were the sacrifice. I've run to far from grace, but I couldn't take my place.
And that right there is a good example. Okay, so I would say go into your session and either mute the piano at the chorus or turn it way down, or do something. Maybe it's MIDI and you have control over that. I would change it to like some padded chords for impact instead of it being busy. Just to my ear, I feel like that's getting in the way of the song. I feel like your vocals are getting drowned out by the action on the piano, and the guitars are losing their power by having that piano bouncing around a little bit. So if you have control over that, I would say go back and at least give it a shot. Take a listen, see what happens whenever you take the piano out. Let the guitars drive the hook, and let the piano be the verse like you have here.
Do to fill the void. I'm 3 steps away, but I hear your voice.
Yeah, so that was that next note. So moving on from the arrangement, I would take a listen to your drums. I like what's going on with your drums. I think I could use some drum room, at least on the snare. I don't know if you've got anything. Maybe it's tucked way down. But I would love to hear a little bit of ambience to these drums. And I think a simple deverb room would sound cool. I don't know if you have Ocean Wave from UAD. That's one of my favorites. Anyone who's purchased mixing with reverb knows I love me some Ocean Wave. But some kind of small room sound or something to give it a little bit of ambience. And then again, you may ride the volume of your drum room. Let it be kind of chill at the verse, but then maybe it gets a little bit bigger at the hook, at the chorus, and comes up 4 or 5 dB. But I would love to hear a little bit of drum room. The for future vocal thoughts, I had pictured as I was listening to this at the chorus, your vocals, your lead vocal, changing sound so it's not the same as the verse, but then also having stacks left and right, doubles and triples of your lead vocal so that it really gives it an impact. I feel like we kind of drown the vocal out with the guitars, especially with the piano at the hook. So let's take a look at that.
I am so lonely,
Not there.
so broken inside. Don't leave me here tonight. I'm not worthy of your love.
Okay, and you have some awesome vocal harmonies at the end. I put a note here that I love the harmonies. I think they're out here.
Broken inside. Glorious power, oh yes. In this
Yep, there it was right there.
sin, it is no more. It's power, oh yes. In this you can believe. Oh, oh.
Okay, don't be afraid to boost those, man. I like what's going on there. Maybe not hard pan left and right, but maybe 75% left and right could sound really cool. Stacking that lead vocal, some harmonies for the chorus. I really, really, really would love to hear some of that stuff. and some cool effects for it, some modulation, some gentle chorus, stuff like that would be really cool on those backgrounds. The song length, if you have control over that, again, I'm not sure how much, if you're in the band or if this is a buddy of yours or whatnot, but I would recommend doing a radio version. I think the song drops off twice. Am I wrong about that?
Your friend, so broken.
And then again.
I was broken inside, but you picked me up that.
Okay, so a small tip, but you may consider doing a radio version where you maybe either don't go low there or don't go low here, one of the two, or you find a way to shorten some stuff, maybe shorten up the intro. But 3.5 minutes might be cool to have a radio version of this one. A lot of you guys are screaming at me about that note, but let's go to oohs and ahs. Maybe it's phrases, words. The vocal producer in me, I just had a vocal session the other day and produced the whole thing. The artist came in, really talented singer, and he didn't have anything really written for it. So we took a lot of time, wrote out, took some notes. Take some time, man. Listen to some of your favorite records. The Chris Tomlin stuff, Matthew West, a lot of those guys in CCM. Listen to their vocals and different arrangements that are going on with their vocals. And, man, steal from that. Listen to what they're doing, and then take some of those oohs and ahs, the harmonies and things like that, and apply it to your own stuff. I think the vocals were way underproduced on this one for the potential that the track had. So give a listen to that, pull from what they're doing, and then do more of those harmonies, man. I heard the harmonies just at the end there, and that's like a super tease because I could hear pockets of harmonies. Maybe not the first verse, but every section thereafter could be really cool to have some harmonies. The chorus getting wider, we talked about. The reverb on your voice at a couple of these sections, like that break right there.
So broken inside.
And it sounds like a reverb throw. I would take a low pass filter, high cut, and I would go in and pull out some of the top end on your reverb channel. So you got your reverb send. Excuse me. I would go in and just take out some of this. Started at about 6 or 7K. And see if you like that. See if you hear it being a little warmer, a little smoother. It didn't really annoy me, but I just think that it would be something you could check out, is EQing your reverb sends to reduce some of that top end. Maybe even compressing that reverb, give it a little more fullness would be kind of cool. You're probably screaming at me. I think you have mixing with reverb that I just released. So you probably already are implementing that. But anyways, the other thing was auto-tune, my friend. Back off of the retune speed. I don't think you need it for this type of song. I would much, much rather hear your voice or whoever voice this is a little bit more natural and less of the auto-tune. If you want to go all out with the tuning, man, do Melodyne or send it off for some editing and get someone to Melodyne it so it's a little more natural. I don't think that the auto-tune sound that I hear, I think it was in the first verse, I heard it pretty prominent.
Hear your cries and feel your pain. You've drawn away, but you're still the same. And all I do is cry. All I do is cry.
Yeah, so a little bit thick for me. There's a couple parts where I heard it really working in action. So back off, man. Trust that the song will carry you. Do a little bit less with the tuning. And those were my notes, man. I think that is it. We started with a track, and I didn't really keep any of the settings, but we started with this track here. Kind of bright, a little bit harsh. Was our reference. And then we ended up with something a little more tame.
And I am so lonely, living in this darkness.
And I think you're really going to love blending cymbal samples. I think that's really going to take these drums to the next level. A little bit of a room sound underneath, and I think you've got a great thing going on here. So, man, Matt, thanks again for trusting me to hear your work and give a little bit of constructive criticism. I hope that those tips have helped you, man. And any of you guys watching back, I hope that you enjoyed that. Again, this is the custom mix critique service that comes with the upper tiers of my courses. You can check out the links in the description below for those. And also the mixacademy.com members get access to a discounted custom mix critique where they can get it just on its own. They don't have to buy a course and get it through that. But Anyways, thanks again, Matt, for letting us hear your song and give a walkthrough. Guys, I hope you enjoyed it. More at davidglennrecording.com, theproaudiofiles.com. Please like, subscribe, share with your friends. If you think this could bring value to someone, please, man, help us out. Share that, and we'll appreciate you for it, and we will catch you in many more to come. Thanks.